So part of that vision is more sustainable cities, and we've had touched on that theme quite a bit over the last few days. Let's explore it further. I'd like to introduce you to Shobhakar Dhakal, who is the Executive Director of the Japan Office of the Global Carbon Project. He has years of research and experience dealing with energy and environmental issues in cities. Shobhakar.
Thank you, Nisha. Friends and colleagues, this morning I'm going to talk to you about developing environmentally sustainable cities. Basically, I have three messages to deliver you. The first message is to give you a sense of the speed, scale, and the complexity of urbanization, which is very, very unprecedented. And the second key message I want to leave you with is that the sustainability challenges in relation to cities are yet enormous and multifaceted, and I'm arguing for the need for new metrics to comprehend and act. And the third message I want to deliver you is that there are opportunities for the transformative change, but we need collective push. Just to give you a sense of rapidly urbanizing world, in a sense of speed, it took us 10,000 years to have 1 billion urban population in the world. It took us only 25 years to add 2nd billion. It took us much less time to add the 3rd billion, and it will most likely take us only less than 15 years to add the 4th billion of the population. We are at the level of 3.5 billion urban population, roughly 50% of the global population, and also this means that urban area at the moment, from the land use perspective, somewhere between 0.2 to 2.4% of the global terrestrial land is urban. And also the now rural population, which is very crucial, is most likely to decline from 2020 onwards. So what we'll see, the trend here is very, very rapidly urbanizing world. And in next 40 years, by 2050, we are going to add 2.8 billion people in our cities, which we did in last 60 years. We are going to add that much in next 40 years by 2050. So we are talking here about a big trend. And that means we are going to make our land use also moving towards that direction. Urban expansion likely to be at the range of 1.5 million square kilometers in next 20-25 years. That is almost equivalent to the size of France, Germany, and Spain. We also know that most of this urbanization and population growth will take place in the medium and small scale cities. Of course, we are very much transfixed on the problems of the megacities or big cities, but small scale and the medium sized cities are the ones where all this growth is going to happen. There are enough sustainability challenges for us to deal with. We are already struggling, our cities are already struggling with a number of sustainability challenges arising from different components in the urban system. Just to give you a sense of different couple of indicators, urban contribution to the global primary energy demand is roughly about 2/3 of the global primary energy use, which is likely to be increased significantly in next couple of decades. To give you a sense of CO2 emissions coming out from urban area, roughly 70% of the global CO2 emissions from energy use is attributed to city, which is likely to go up to 76% in next 20 years or so. And also the share of urban CO2 emissions in different parts of the world, different countries are enormous. Look the case of China. Almost 85% of the China's energy-related CO2 emissions can be attributed to the urban areas. So we are talking about a big numbers here. Similarly, if you look at the per capita CO2 emission, we see that the per capita CO2 emission in cities are perhaps lesser than the national average in the developed part of the world. But in the developing country, this per capita CO2 emission in cities are way higher than the national average. And we are talking about all the urban growth happening in all this developing part of the world, and that puts us into pretty big challenge. Our sustainability challenge is not only CO2 emission and energy, air pollution. some of the study done based on the World Bank data on 3,200 cities shows that still we have a big fraction of the urban population living under the not very healthy air pollution. Almost 740 million people are above the minimum WHO air quality standards. There are enormous challenge. Look at the people in the slum. The number of people living in a slum in terms of proportion has declined, but if you look at the sheer number, almost 827 million people still live in the slum. We feel perhaps that urban area has better energy access, which is true compared to the rural area and other things. But still, there's a big chunk of the urban population without even access to electricity. Up to 275 million people living in cities are without access to electricity, mostly in the sub-Saharan Africa and the South Asia. The amount of the investment that has to go there in order to have this minimum access of electricity would run into the $1 trillion. Now, we have been talking a lot about sustainable city. And what is environmentally sustainable city can be contested. There are many approaches to looking into the environmental sustainability. I do not want to go too much into that debate. But many of these frameworks and many of these approaches, what we have at the moment, basically have some kind of disconnect. And few key aspects of this global sustainability has not been realized in those urban environmental sustainability debates. For example, the connectivity between cities, the connectivity between cities and hinterlands, the dimension of consumption in cities, and what are the environmental burden imposed by city to the outside its boundaries. All these different new set of indicators need to go into the environmentally sustainable metrics that we are interested in order to excel global environmental sustainability. Just to give an example, not to pick the city of Tokyo, which is an excellent city and very, very efficient city with innovative policies. If we attribute the amount of the CO2 emissions to the consumption side, the amount of CO2 that comes from the production side, typical territorial approach, that is several times higher. That means all these big cities, especially cities with a very highly commercial setup, have a lot of CO2 footprints. I think this morning, Minister David Willett very articulately mentioned that there's a need for a full cycle carbon accounting and to perhaps to attribute responsibility in this bigger debate about sustainability. I think this is very, very crucial for us. Having said that, I would also like to say that there are opportunities for the transformative change. As I mentioned to you, that the urbanization that is going to unfold in next couple of decades would be enormous. If we can ensure the quality of urbanization in these new developments, if we can avoid the lock-in to the wrong path that we have perhaps done in last centuries in our cities, if we can avoid that, if we can make system more efficient, if we can make urban form correct, utilize the space in a very efficient way, which provides the initial set of conditions to even change our lifestyle, even to put the very much integrated environmental infrastructure in cities, physical infrastructure. I think that is where I think we have a huge opportunity, because again, studies are showing that almost 1.5 million square kilometer urban land will perhaps expanded by in next couple of decades, and billions of people need to be added there. And also the second key opportunity also I would like to put into your consideration is reorienting investment in the green urban infrastructure system and other measures to enhance the efficiency of the operation of cities. There are a lot of infrastructure that need to be replaced in cities or to be updated. We have to address that efficiently. There are a lot of issues regarding urban energy and urban energy system integration, putting different piece of the puzzle in the urban system cohesively working together so that we look at urban as a unit of some kind of complete system. going beyond our sectoral optimization, but looking at the urban as a whole and try to make it urban system more efficiently. And also, of course, huge potential for building energy, huge potential from waste management, and of course, transportation and all these things can be woven into the set of co-benefits cutting across. Also, I'd like to emphasize on need for systemic change. Of course, incremental solutions are needed, but again, for more transformative change, what we need is more systemic change. And this systemic change is absolutely essential. One of the key messages coming out from one of our urban assessment in the global energy assessment has been that largest energy and CO2 reduction potentials come from systemic change, but it requires overcoming the policy fragmentation and dispersed, uncoordinated decision-making. This means we have to fix our governance system, and we have to fix the way we do things in order to go for a systemic approach. And I don't need to re-emphasize too much on lifestyle change, which is absolutely essential. And we have actually pretty good lessons we have learned in the last couple of decades for what we need to do for transformative change. For example, we have very innovative cap-and-trade system for CO2 emissions in the city of Tokyo. We have wonderful public transport in city of Curitiba in Brazil. There are many urban regeneration projects in many cities. There are innovative road pricing system in Singapore and also in London. There are ambitious climate action plans in many cities in the developing world. We have a lot of demonstration programs like city like Masdar aiming for zero carbon city. These are all source of optimism. There are no single solutions. One solution doesn't fit all. We need different approaches, but what we need is to bring all these dimensions together. However, I already said we need better governance. We need more scientific knowledge on how to operate city, how to understand many dimensions of it. We need to develop the better resource base for cities. We have to build a capacity and support mechanism for city. With this, I would like to leave you here. Thank you.
Thanks, Shobhakar. Just continuing that theme of sustainable change and the opportunities there, a question from Mike Child sent in on Twitter who's saying if national governments are unable to agree radical changes, can we look to the mayors of megacities and other cities to show that leadership?
That's a very, very, very important question, Nisha, because I think the mayors are now taking increasingly more leadership than in the past, be it at the issue of the climate change or be it at other aspects. They are becoming increasingly more and more active, and which is very good. But also we have to understand that, especially in the context of cities in developing country, still the role of local governments is still limited. So we have to have some set of multi-level kind of governance, police-centric kind of governance to really make city work. But of course, local governments are very good leaders. They are taking leadership, and momentum is there, which is excellent to see.
Shobhakar, thank you very much.